To the other story that we are tracking this evening on the right stand. Bharat has always maintained that Sikhs, especially born post-1984 Sikh riots, have been targeted, brainwashed and radicalized against the country by these criminal elements, gangsters and these K-goons. They've been given a false picture of Operation Blue Star and the Sikh riots and all Sikh massacre actually, and told how Sikhs are actually unsafe in India, especially those who are born outside for Indian soil. Today, a story which we bring to you is an example of the same. It's not in Bharat, but in Trudeau's own backyard that Sikhs, misguided by gangsters, K-elements, are carrying out illegal activities. 8 Sikh youths have been detained in a major arms crackdown, stirring concerns among the Indo community, the Indian diaspora in Canada. Let us tell you all about this crackdown on these gangs and where it's happened. 8 Canadian youngsters have been arrested in Brampton. All arrested accused are aged between 19 to 26 years. The accused have been charged with firearm-related offences. 9mm Beretta firearms have been seized from their residence. All the detained individuals are of Sikh descent and action after information given by a source in a local Gurudwara. So who are the 8 accused in the case and what are the charges against them? First one, Rajanpreet Singh, a 21-year-old, possession of a loaded, prohibited or restricted firearm, careless storage of the firearm weapon, prohibited device or ammunition. Jagdeep Singh, 22-year-old, similar charges, possession of a loaded, prohibited or restricted firearm. Ekamjot Randhawa, 19-year-old, possession of a loaded, prohibited or restricted firearm. Manjinder Singh, 26-year-old, possession of a loaded, prohibited or restricted firearm. Harpreet Singh, a 23-year-old, possession of a loaded, prohibited or restricted firearm. Ripanjot Singh, a 22-year-old, possession of a loaded, prohibited or restricted firearm. Japandeep Singh, a 22-year-old, similar charges. Lovepreet Singh, a 26-year-old, possession of a loaded, prohibited or restricted firearm. Similar charges against all these individuals. And this is after repeated complaints of them using these weapons to intimidate. Shots had been fired. And there had been 2 incidences reported in 2 different areas, regions in Canada itself. Let's go across to Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF, Strategic Affairs Expert, Ramneek Singh Maan, activist, and also Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. There are multiple dimensions to this entire Canada story, starting with these youngsters, and then we'll bring in the other aspects also. There was an MEA briefing and some surprising developments around Hardeep Nijjar, which we'd also talk about. But first, let's focus on these youngsters and these youth. Ramneek Maan, something which we've been talking about regularly. Youngsters being pushed into crime, gangsters brainwashed by these gurdwaras. Something needs to be done sooner than later. And this is happening in Trudeau's own backyard.
So good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists. You see, this is not the first time such an incident has come forward. It has been on multiple occasions. The last I remember of is from August 2022 last year, when the British Columbia Police released a list of 11 criminals, out of which 9 were Punjabi and 8 were Sikhs. So my only point here is that, this whole thing has been going on for far too long. And the social structure of Gurdwaras and Sikhs in Canada and the US and in UK also, by and large, has rotten to the core, if I may use the word, for a lack of better word. So I also, see that there is, the champions of Sikhi, the champions of Khalistani cause, they would come forward and stake claim at the success of any Sikh from the diaspora and claim it to be their success. With the same grit and spirit, they should come forward and accept that, yes, this has been a problem with the community over the years, that, we've deteriorated to such a level where gangsters, drug dealers, illegal arm traders, kidnappers, extortionists, murderers have been produced from our community just because they haven't been able to put the correct perspective in the Sikh youth. I think it is a time for inflection. It's an inflection point in course correction. While there is still time, though, I feel that, by and large, the community leaders in Canada, or perhaps in the West, the Sikh community leaders, have been brainwashing the generation of young Sikhs into picking up weapons. because it is easy money, getting into drugs, getting into promotion of terrorism, getting into trying to discredit India and our community. They have been causing a lot of problems for us Sikhs back at home. They're trying to bring down the image of Sikhs in the public perception, which was formed by the sacrifices of our gurus and our ancestors. So I think they have no right whatsoever to call themselves Sikhs, or to champion or project themselves as the champions of Sikhi, or to project themselves as the champions of Sikhs, because apparently, and why apparently? Because very obviously, they are the ones who are bringing all the discredit to Sikhi and Sikhs. Even in India, they're bringing discredit to us. Look around, Anand. Come to Punjab. Come to these part of this country where Sikhs live in predominant population. We don't ask or seek for any khalistan. They are, Canada's problem, the Canadians' problem is that they are accepting every designated terrorist, every goon, every gangster, every murderer, every criminal into their country. And eventually, this is how it's going to work out. And I would, like to thank the gentleman or the person who was the source behind these arrests, the way I would like to thank the ones who were arrested in Vancouver. There have been Sikhs who are involved into drug trafficking, illegal trade, hawala money, God knows what not. I mean, while the world is moving forward, India, parties are moving forward in the field of technology, in the field of banking, in the field of investment, in the field of research, in the field of every field, These people are still trying to get into criminal acts and destroying their own lives and bringing discredit to the Sikh population globally. So this needs a course correction by the leaders of Sikh community globally.
And somewhere, Sushant Sareen, do the right-thinking Sikhs, the sane ones, or perhaps the majority, do they need to reclaim and take back these gurdwaras and take back these hubs, which have now been used for these kind of activities, and also openly open up a front against these criminals and gang lords? One. And secondly, does this argument fly when the Canadians turn around and say they got the fake passports, you have cleared them, they are able to come into our country because they've got the documents at your end? That means at our end. Ji.
So, Anand, the problem is that, it's something like the Gresham's law, which says that when bad money circulates along with good money, it drives the good money out and the bad money takes over. It's the same thing in human affairs. If you have a permissive environment in a country like Canada, where these thugs, these criminal gangs are actually politically patronized and supported, and they operate like a mafia which not only funds the politicians in Canada, the Safed Posh politicians in Canada, but also has inserted itself in police, in administration, in politics in Canada. It operates like a mafia. When a mafia operates, what do good, honest, decent people do? It is very difficult. Just a couple of days back, Anand, you yourself, in fact, last 2 days, you've had interviews of that very intrepid, brave and true Sikh, Harnaam Kapoor, and then you've had this lady yesterday, Nancy Grewal, right?
Ji.
But how many people actually are willing to go through that? How many of them are going to say that, okay, fine, bring it on, I'll take it on? Most people will say, screw it, because I'm not getting the support of the government. I'm not getting the support of the state. The state is not standing with me. So ideally, yes, the community should throw these bad pennies out. But I think it's easier said than done, simply because of the kind of thuggery these guys are doing. Also, Anand, you have to understand that, there are these criminal gangs are operating. These criminal gangs intimidate people. They have actually indulged in all kinds of, killings in Canada. We've seen a spate of killings which have taken place, in Canada, including perhaps of Niger. Who knows, right? And this is a big problem. So a normal guy will say, look, I'm not going to get involved in this thing. Let people, who care about it, do it. If I have to go to a Gurdwara, I'll do my prayers and I'll come back without bothering too much about it. The other problem is that most of these youth, Anand, have not been pushed into this. The correct term to be used is they have been seduced into it. Because there is this glorification, and I blame the Punjabi music industry, and I hold them all culpable for what is happening. Right? It's criminal what they have done to an entire society where you had such uplifting stuff coming out
The
from
gangster
the good
culture,
and other poetry. Look at the kind of toxic nonsense these buggers turn out, right?
Yeah.
It's only about guns, it's only about drugs, it's only about killing, it's only about girls, it's only about the most venal and vile things in life. And that's been glorified. Becoming a mafioso is glorified in Punjab.
Yeah.
Why do you so young people have been seduced into it? They think there's a certain romance attached to being a criminal.
But in that also there is a story, Sushantji, because there are elements who have influenced lyricists, paid them, production companies sitting in the UK which have been run with a particular agenda to try and get into the minds and vitiate the minds and lure people away from the right side of life or the right path into these paths, so that you corrupt this entire community and the society as a whole. That's a larger game that's also being played.
It's a money spinner. It's like something with what happened to Bollywood in the 80s.
Yeah.
When the mafia had taken over Bollywood, all the actors, used to go and pay obeisance to Dawood Ibrahim and others in Dubai, to all these tuchas, Chota Shakil and all these third-rate fellows, criminals. They used to go and pay obeisance out there. Those guys used to fund their movies.
Yeah.
Then that entire money laundering networks used to take over. That entire Hawala network used to operate on that basis. It is only when, largely this thing was cleansed that Bombay film industry became a little normal.
Right.
That same template is now being followed in Punjab as far as the Punjabi music industry is concerned. And apart from 4 or 5 of these singers, and who are very good ones, the bulk of these singers are the most toxic and soft separatist, or in fact openly flirting.
And it's slowly they keep pushing the line towards and they become all the more out there in terms of in your face, in terms of guns, gangsters, drugs, and also this, like it doesn't soft separatism, it's open separatism that then comes to. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, thank you for your patience, sir. Your thoughts, and then we'll add the other dynamics with you itself. Ji.
Well, I think the basic thing to answer your question, whether community can do something to stop or control these bad elements, especially in Gurdwaras, I don't think community has the responsibility or the wherewithal to check gangsters. That is the function of the law and order machinery of the state. And for a long time, they allowed this wound to fester. Now, with the arrest of the few people that you mentioned, maybe Canada itself has woken up that they are encouraging and pampering something very septic. So, hopefully, this will not be the end of the process. There will be more arrests so that the entire spectrum of illegal money, drugs, and as you said, the singers who propagate the wrong message, that can be checked. But it is too soon to tell whether Canada is sincere about it. Who knows, Canada itself may be interested in encouraging this. ISI certainly is.
So there is an interesting dynamic on this that's approached. I'm just going to shift the dynamic, staying with Canada. We'll first play out what Arindam Bagchi today mentioned, the MEA spokesperson. I'm just changing this a bit to our team there, because Arindam Bagchi was very clear while he spoke about the instances in Canada and the UK. As far as the shunting of or the shafting of the diplomats is concerned, he said political interference. Bharat mentioned the aspect of political interference, and then there is visual proof that confirms this political interference, not just on Indian soil, but emanating perhaps from Canadian soil. First, listen to what he had to say.
Insofar as discussions on parity, as we mentioned earlier, given the much higher diplomatic presence of Canadian diplomats or diplomatic presence here in Canada and their continuing interference in our internal affairs, we had and we have sought parity in our respective diplomatic presence. Discussions are ongoing on the modalities of achieving this. Specific question by you, John, regarding dates, etc. Look, I would not like to get into the details of diplomatic conversations. As we mentioned, I think last week, given that Canadian diplomatic presence is very much higher, we would assume that there would be a reduction. Let me just say, we have been taking up concerns about the security of our diplomats and our premises and other elements related to people there who are wanted by our security or our judicial systems, and we will continue to do that, and that's an ongoing conversation. I don't want to get into individual persons, but in the UK there was a protest on 2nd October, and we certainly have taken up our concerns on the security of diplomats and premises there with the UK authorities, and this has been ongoing thing. The issue is about security, about ensuring that our diplomats are able to function normally and our premises are safe and that the community is not targeted. In the UK there was a protest on 2nd October, and we certainly have taken up our concerns on the security of diplomats and premises there with the UK authorities, and this has been ongoing thing. The issue is about security, about ensuring that our diplomats are able to function normally and our premises are safe and that the community is not targeted.
Arindam Bagchi steering clear of making any reference of British citizens being targeted by these K elements, but said that the community should not be targeted. But here is the aspect of political interference, and it does not stop only with the 40-odd diplomats who are present on Indian soil currently and have been given till the 10th of October to be recalled or to head back to Canada. Have a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hardeep Nijjar here, the picture of Hardeep Nijjar, and he's been called a member of the Khalistan Tiger Force. Hardeep Nijjar has been called a member of the Khalistan Tiger Force. Shahid Hardeep Nijjar has been called a member of the Khalistan Tiger Force. And the Khalistan Tiger Force was banned as a terrorist organization by Bharat earlier this year in February 2023, along with the Ghaznavi force. The Khalistan Tiger Force was also banned for its activities on Indian soil. Nijjar, by his own supporters outside a Gurdwara, was hailed as a member of the Khalistan Tiger Force. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, if this is not proof of direct interference on Indian soil from Canada by somebody who's been proscribed a terrorist by us in 2020, then what more proof does anybody want?
Well, Canada itself is aware that it does not need any more proof as to what is happening on its soil. It knows very well that one plane was blown out in the air in 1980s because there were people in Canada who were conspiring to put a bomb there. It very well knows that there are people in Canada who order killings in India. So Canada does not need any proof. But what I am surprised at is the double standards employed by Canada. Their foreign minister a couple of days back made a statement saying that diplomatic issues should be best solved privately, and that is what we are doing with India. Quite forgetting that a couple of days earlier the Canadian Prime Minister had taken a diplomatic issue right in the open and accusing a country, a major country in the world, of something which he says is alleged to have happened. Now, if Canada is not coming straight and is not coming open, there will always be doubt as to whether it is sincere about checking what is happening on its soil. Is it sincere on checking interference by its diplomats and people living in Canada in affairs of India, in internal affairs of India? Secondly, India has a valid reason to be concerned about the safety of its diplomats, and as Arindam said, about the community, Indian community in Canada, because there have been incidents right from the 80s where diplomats have been targeted by Khalistani elements, some of them by even ISI sponsored elements, and Indian community in general, both right-thinking Sikhs and Hindus, Christians and Muslims, have been targeted by Canadian ultra-rights as well as Sikh extremists, the Khalistani elements. So India has a valid reason to be concerned, and it is time that Canada sat up and did something about it, because so far it has been listening, it has been ignoring what has been presented to it, and it has been perhaps pampering the elements which are indulging in these criminal activities.
Now,
maybe because of political reasons.
Can we mount
but political reasons cannot mean
No, but Ambassador
you
Rajiv
target a country which is otherwise friendly to you and which has about 300,000 students who are providing billions of dollars annually to your country.
No, but Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, interrupting you here before I bring in Ramnik Maan and so Sushant Sareen. The fact is, we proscribed Hardeep Nijjar, a terrorist, in 2020. There is an RCN against him since November 2014. But now his own supporters outside his Gurdwara in Canada have named him a member of the Khalistan Tiger Force, which was banned by us in February 2023. Can we not expose Justin Trudeau that he's standing up for somebody who's broken the Canadian gun laws by firing an AK-47, has a red corner notice against him, and he's member of a proscribed organization while himself being proscribed a terrorist? And his own supporters are claiming it. I think we've lost Rajiv Dogra there. Ramnik Maan, would you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah. Well, Anand, if I may, Justin Trudeau is exposed naked. And he realizes it. His government, the people in his cabinet, they realize it now that Justin Trudeau has exposed the Canadian hypocrisy, their bigotry, the way they have been trying to stab India in its back. I'll tell you, I'll take you back a little. If you look at Parmar, who was the mastermind of Kanishka bombing, had he been extradited and repatriated to India when India demanded so, probably Kanishka tragedy would have never happened. Those 329 lives would have never been lost. Those 280 Canadian citizens would have never lost their lives. And India would have never lost an airplane. And had they repatriated or extradited Hardeep Nijjar, this diplomatic standoff between India and Canada would have never happened. But no, as a matter of policy, the Canadian government has been rearing these snakes in their backyard, and they're coming back and haunting, and they're biting them. So this is when they realize that they need to do something about it. WSO, World Sikh Organization, is a pro-Khalistani organization in Canada, which is deeply rooted inside the Canadian system. Every arm of the Canadian government will have somebody from the WSO, and these are the people. These are the people who, prevent these separatist elements, these Khalistani elements, from getting punished in the Canadian legal justice system, justice delivery system, or their extradition to India. So I personally feel, I don't know if the government of India will take my advice seriously or not, but World Sikh Organization, WSO, should be proscribed as a terror outfit, similar to the way Baba Khalsa or BKI was designated as a terrorist organization.
But WSO and BKI have been highlighted and flagged off by the Canadian intelligence itself in its 2018 report. Even the watered down report, names them.
The members of WSO are deeply rooted in the Canadian system, in their judiciary, in their police, in their army, in their civil services. They are deeply rooted. How do you get these brainwashed people out? They are the ones who've been glorifying terrorists. They are the ones who have been glorifying gun culture. They are the ones who are glorifying murders.
My thing is that we have to then expose them at every platform possible, Sushant Sareen, that a Hardeep Nijjar, proscribed by Bharat as a terrorist, member of the Khalistan Tiger Force, which is again a proscribed organization by Bharat, and this is claimed by his own members, his own supporters outside a Gurdwara that is allegedly controlled by them. On Canadian soil they are saying this, and they are all members of this WSO. Yes.
So Anand, I think that the problem is even worse than what Ramnik is making it out to be. If it was only the infiltration of the WSO in the various arms of the Canadian government, their whatever political influence they wield, all of that, that was still manageable. I am increasingly inclined to believe that this nonsense cannot happen without the complicity and the connivance and active involvement of the Canadian government.
Absolutely.
You know, it is not possible. You know, right now we are told, Anand, that,
Jay.
and especially by some of these brown sepoys, that, you know, intelligence is all very relative, it's never perfect. But when they have intelligence alleging something we have done, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I want to ask these guys, their famed Five Eye intelligence network, where their deep intrusions they make, they monitor all conversations. They don't have an idea of what the links of these criminal gangs is with the Khalistani movement, what thuggery they are involved in India, what nexus they have with the Pakistanis, how they are involved in drug running. Are you telling me that this famed Five Eyes is lost all its Five Eyes when it comes to this particular activity? Is somebody suggesting that to me? In which case they should shut it down.
Or did they just turn a blind eye to it because it was convenient for them?
Blind. So my serious problem now is, and we've known that these white folk have been quite used to doing this kind of a thing, that, you know, you keep something alive so that tomorrow, and this is a particularly British thing, you know, you keep something alive that you can tomorrow, if you want to use some leverage, you have something with you. Which is why they're turning a blind eye, which is why they're not cracking down on them. Otherwise, their own laws against hate speech, for example. If I say something against a gay or a lesbian, I can be put in jail.
Right.
I call for assassination of Indian diplomats and no action is taken. That is freedom of speech.
This freedom of speech is also selectively interpreted even in this issue. Those who challenge these elements and call them khotestani are asked to pull down their videos, but those who put out their pictures and label them and then abuse them and then threaten them, they are allowed to do it because on the garb of freedom of speech. This actually befuddles me, and it should befuddle everybody watching this broadcast. Gentlemen, I have run out of time. I have to wind up. We will try and pick the story up and get you more details. We are tracking this very, very closely. We stay with the Canada issue, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, it's a very young Canadian MP, Kevin Yong, who joins us. He spoke to us late last evening. We'll play out that conversation when we come back here on The Right Stand. Stay with us.